Some call them deer flows, others call them transition zones, yet others call them trails. What we're going to start talking about today is, what is a transition zone? What is that deer flow people are talking about, and how we can create that? Simply put, it's really nothing more than deer traveling from one area to another. The simplest way to envision a deer flow is a deer is bedding here, their main food source is here, and the way they get back and forth between that food source and that bedding area, that's that individual deer's flow. The area between those two, that's the transition zone. Okay? And guess what? It's marked by a trail. No matter what you want to call it, that's all we're talking about, is the places that deer are getting from one to another. Why is this important? Well, geez, it really helps when you're out hunting to know where the heck the deer are on a whole bunch of levels. Obviously, from a success standpoint, it helps immensely as far as filling that tag, but it helps in more subtle ways in filling that tag than you'll ever realize. And that is, every single time we go into the deer woods, we are risking, and I'm not saying we should be afraid to go into the deer woods, but every time we go into the deer woods hunting, what we're doing is we're risking educating deer. There's a phenomenon that you see play out over and over and over again, especially with, I'm from Wisconsin, especially with hunters that have cabins up in northern Wisconsin that go up there that week of the rut. They've left that place alone the entire time. Now they finally got their time off, and there they head up there. And that first day is pretty darn good. That second day is okay. That third day is pretty, and by the time you get to fourth, every single hunt, the quality is generally headed down. Why? Because, frankly, we are educating those deer. We're driving them from our ground. How do you change that? Well, if you know where they are, it really helps. And then, when they're in inopportune locations, maybe we can do a little bit of shifting around. Okay, so how do you set up a transition zone? You set up a transition zone simply by IDing preferably where the deer are bedded, but we don't have to know exactly where they're bedded. We do have to have a general idea where they're coming from, particularly if they're off of our property. A general idea that's the direction they're coming from, that helps a ton. Next, where are they going? More often than not, it's a food source. It's a water source. It's bedding, or it's something rut related. That goes ahead and encompasses the overwhelming majority of deer movement right there. Just simply food, water, rut, bedding, and you can throw comfort in there as well. The next thing that we have to figure out is, how are deer traveling? Well, they obviously use topography to their advantages. Rather than climb up this steep side hill, if there's a spot where they can climb, like, they're going to do that 9 times out of 10 unless there's a really good reason to climb that really steep side hill. Deer are creatures of the edge. That's an old saying. What does that mean? Deer generally like traveling along edges. Okay, so they're using the topography, they're using the cover, they're also lazy. They want to expend the least amount of energy they can while feeling safe to get to where they want to go. So, let's put this all together now. Let's create them a target on our property. And frankly, the target is either going to be food, water, does, comfort, or a combination of those things. Okay, so now we've got where they're coming from, we've got the destination. We know that deer are creatures of the edge. We know that they're lazy, so let's lead them through in a way that everybody in the world does not want to do this. This is a tool in your toolbox for specific situations where, geez, I really need to nail this down a little bit more, tighter for my success to reach my goals. Okay, give them that target. Now, give them a very nice, easy path from where they're coming from to where they're going. And by nice and easy, I don't mean a sidewalk. I don't mean a logging road. I mean, don't try to lead them through stuff like elevation changes like that if you don't have to. Try to determine what is the safest, easiest path for these whitetails, and then put it on steroids. Go ahead and create a browse edge along that whole travel corridor. Okay, whitetails are creatures of the edge. They like traveling the edge. Now you're throwing a little browse in as well. And as long as you're at it, go ahead and put up a ridiculous amount of licking branches. And then right before that main destination, particularly if it's a food source, put in a little staging plot with a different food source, maybe a few fruit trees, a water source, along with a whole bunch of edge feathering around it to jack the browse up through the roof, and we are going to hang licking branches all over the darn thing because we want to create it a social hub as well, and then from there continue to dump them out into that food source. Yes, that is extremely simplistic, what I just said right here, but that's the formula. It really is. And the simpler you can keep it, the more effective it generally is. You know what the deer want. You know that they're lazy when it comes to traveling. So just put it together in a way that works for you. Now, you've went ahead and made that transition zone. Go through this nice little funnel that you can get to, hunt, and get out of without getting busted. You know where those deer are going to be. 100% no, but a lot better than you would have otherwise. And now you have a predictable deer flow. Now all of a sudden you can start hunting low impact stands really hard and not have your hunt go like this day after day after day. Final thoughts brought to you by Huntworth. We use all sorts of fancy words for essentially deer trails. And what are deer trails doing? They're taking deer from a location to a destination. We can go ahead and in specific situations, you don't want to do it in all. I mean, for crying out loud, there's got to be some hunting to some of this stuff too. But in specific locations where it calls for it, we can actually, to a great extent, dictate how those deer are transitioning from that bedding to that feeding and back again.